This is Sybert signing into Red Alert 3 on the map Infinity Isle and spawning as the blue allies on the left side. He's from Team Mates. He normally plays Soviets except for when he plays Empire or Allies. He is Mates Dankal. That's right, I have no idea what faction he is actually going to be sticking with, but on the opposite side of Infinity Isle, he is also from Team Mates. He is Mates Eminence. So, Eminence versus Dankal. And I mean, with these two players, it is going to be hard for this to be a bad game. And Dankal, I have no idea what faction he is going to be playing eventually. He was playing Soviets for quite a while, then he switched to Empire, and now he's going to be playing some Allies. So we'll have to see, is he as masterful with Allies as he is with the other two races? And of course, Eminence, Green Empire, that is his standard. Very powerful Empire player, and he may very well be going for his somewhat patented wall swag. We'll have to see if he starts throwing down walls. Yes, he is! Oh, somebody cue the dubstep music. But I mean, that'll be all right. Wall swag is pretty good on Infinity Isle. I do want to mention that I've got a couple of Red Alert 3 replays that I still have to cast, and then some people have been actually sending me replays, which is fantastic. Because, hey, if people send me awesome games, it just makes it that much easier. Going for the Mecha Bay actually going to be before 3rd Refinery, and I believe he did do this, yeah, off of that one power plant. And that's kind of the interesting thing about this build, is because he heads for the high ground early, throws down those walls, and then he gets that all off of one power plant. So he doesn't have to spend the extra money on the power plant until he starts throwing down the 2nd Refiner. It may actually be throwing him into low power mode because he doesn't have that 2nd power plant set up just yet, but Dankal is going to be going. He's keeping his barracks around for now. He's going to be getting himself a nice airfield, which is, of course, always nice, and going to be heading out to the water expansion. Of course, Tangus and VXs can make that water expansion very difficult to hold, but we'll have to see if there's going to be a ton of VX dependency, although, interestingly enough, the Docks Core is out. So is Dankal actually going to be taking a lot of damage because he spotted the Docks Core. His Vindicator has definitely seen it, and he's got the Apollo camping right outside, but the Defender VX Core may be on the way. No, he's setting up huge amounts of walls in the middle. This is so much money invested into walls, and Dankal is going to be moving in. The first Chopper VX Striker, rather, is out on the field. It is going to be getting some shots off there. So finally, Eminence is going to be getting some units out on the field. He's got his tier 2 up and going, but he's mostly just got walls to hold the ground, which of course, unless you're going for a ton of Javelin Troopers, it is going to be taking you quite a while to bust through walls because of course you can constantly be replenishing walls all around the infantry, and that just makes it super annoying for Dankal. He doesn't have any tanks just yet, but he does have that 3rd Refinery out on the water, going to be throwing down the seaport as well. Will give him some nice free repairs, and then also allow him to get out a couple of Dolphins to help him deal with the Yari mini-subs. We'll have to see, though, because actually with that airfield in that position, I don't think the MCV could actually reach it, so he couldn't purchase Tier 2 now. Well, actually, no, maybe he will. Allied MCVs have ridiculous build radius. However, Yari is going to be getting eliminated there, does take down that Riptide, so a nice reaction there by Eminence. Dankal going to be sitting around with that dog. He is going to be going, of course, for some more Chopper VXs, which is always a good move. Allies are pretty heavily dependent on their Air Force, and getting out those strong Tier 2 anti-air units is, of course, a great idea. A couple of Sea Wings could be added on out here on the water to help him deal with those bombing runs, but for now, it will be the Yari mini-subs. Both players are going to be microwing their forces quite nicely. And I mean, really, that is about as much as they could have done other than using the special abilities, which, I mean, on the Yari mini-subs is just trading for unit, which I think Yari mini-subs actually cost 100 more than a Riptide. I'm not 100% sure on that, so that might actually be a bit inefficient for Eminence to do that. However, it is going to be, shrinking the army size of Dankal and doing some damage in that way. But we'll have to see, because Dankal is looking to take himself a 4th Refinery. However, I don't think Eminence is going to be doing the same. We'll have to see, is he going to be adding on not an airfield, an armor facility, or an additional refinery, because he's got something building in his main queue. But we'll have to wait and see exactly what it is. So many Yari mini-subs out of Eminence. He's adding on 3 and 4 more. That's 3,200 credits right there. And is this actually going to be worth it? Because, again, maybe it's worth it to trade efficiently for the Riptides. I'm not entirely sure. But actually, let's take a quick look. 800 for Yari mini-sub. And Dankal is going to be spending $7.50, so it's actually a smaller differential than I thought. It's only $50 differential, but that is still an inefficient trade for our allies player, and it looks like a little bit of damage there going on that airfield. However, the 4th refinery is now established for Dankal, so he's probably going to be looking to start pumping out a ton of ground units very soon here. However, the Riptide is able to eliminate one of those Yari mini-subs. The Yari mini-subs continually streaming across here. And again, Eminence, he's got a fair amount of damage output going on, but he doesn't have much of an army other than that. However, he was able to snipe the airfield, which is going to be forcing Dankal to rebuild that airfield, most likely on the high ground here. But then he can start getting out some cryocopters because Dankal really needs to start putting the hurt on Eminence. As you can see, he's had to rebuild that ore collector, and now he's going to be forcing it off the line. He's going to deploy it into that command hub. Might actually be able to get the sell-off there, but he does still have to deal with this constant harassment. If he was able to snipe down that naval yard, things would have turned out differently. However, Eminence is now going to be dropping on multiple fronts, and actually it is going to be Cryoblast firing off here. Wastes all of his bombs, and bombs aren't going to be bothered splitting them up. He could have maybe got some shots off on another harvester. Likely would not have killed it, but he would have done some damage, maybe enough to get it into that slow mode. But yeah, Dankal taking a lot of damage, forced to sell off, or rather lose his 3rd refinery, which was, you know, keeping him at one base ahead of Eminence, but now he's actually going to be on equal economic footing, except for the fact that Eminence is doing tons of economic damage. So really, both of these players going for the harass rather than the big engage, but we do have an Apollo potentially taking some damage. No, it was Vindicators. However, the Javelin Troopers are going to be letting some extra damage output. However, a nice transform there by Eminence, and the Apollo will escape. For Dankal, here comes the Vindicators. Are they going to be getting the bombs off that they need? They do take out whatever it was that was right there. I think a couple of Vindicators. However, trading Vindicators, rather, for Tangus is not necessarily efficient. Loses an Apollo as well. A couple of Riptides are going to be getting chased away by Yari mini-subs, but are the Riptides, are they going to be able to get the damage output that they need? Dankal might actually be able to sell that off for $1, or he'll just get it taken out, as a power plant may be getting targeted down as well. Constant action from Eminence is going to be definitely keeping Dankal on his toes, but Eminence, he's letting his Tangus not actually do the damage versus that Apollo, and losing a Tangu is definitely better than losing 2 Chopper VXs, one of which was better and one of which was elite, and now the focus firing is absolutely perfect from Dankal here. He's actually going to be taking out an additional Tangu. Some huge mistakes here by Eminence. He may have been microing somewhere else on the map, but he loses another Tangu. Dankal with tremendous amounts of damage out on the army of Eminence, and that may have actually equaled things up in a big way. Not maybe exactly equal, but certainly helped out Dankal's cause in this game. Because I feel with the amount of economic pressure that Eminence has been doing, Dankal has been a little bit on the back foot, but now Eminence is actually going to be taking a lot of damage, and all of the aircraft will escape. They got their kills, they did their damage, and they're going to escape on home, get those free repairs, and then be out and ready to fight another day. So now suddenly Eminence, he had the naval yard, which was a nice response, but he spent so much money taking out that naval yard and that 3rd refinery. I don't know if it was actually worth it. Once again, we have potentially a cryoblast sort of Vindicator strike going out here. Yep, he is going to be able to lock down maybe that harvester. It will potentially escape. No, it does get locked down. However, the Vindicators are going to be going for the Chopper VXs, and of course they do transform because Eminence is on top of things. But then again, he didn't get any kills, so he's not going to be helping himself in that way. He was able to save that harvester, and hopefully he tells it to get back to work once it unfreezes, because whatever the last command was likely not telling it to get back to work. But he is paying attention, so he will tell it to get back to work right there. Going to be getting his economy back on track. Eminence sitting on those 3 bases, the same with Dankal, but some shots off here from the Strikers are going to be claiming 1 Apollo. And man, those Striker rockets will follow targets so far across the map where you may think, aha, I've got away scot-free, I didn't take any losses, and then suddenly the rockets come slamming in from those Strikers and you lose an Apollo. So that's more money down the drain, but more importantly, this Tangu Cloud is going to be getting out of control for Eminence. So these Vindicators, they're coming in, but do they have any protection? No, they're going for the walls. And the Peacekeepers, there's nothing here to back them up, but yes, there is, because the IFV is actually going to be coming in, or the Tangu's going to be swarming it. They get the nice transform. The surround isn't quite as perfect as it could have been. A couple of IFVs maybe getting cut off here. However, tons of Peacekeepers on the front line are potentially going to be thinning out the herd of Tangus, but the point defense drones absolutely lending so much power and armor to these Tangus. Eminence is going to be splitting his forces quite readily, going to be doing damage to the IFVs, while at the same time taking down a ton of Peacekeepers. And did he actually get the kill on all of those? Yes, he did, because of that Emperor's the Honorable Discharge, which I always want to call Emperor's Discharge, like a mix of Emperor's Rage and Honorable Discharge. Oh, Dankal going to be taking a little bit of damage there, but he does pull back. A nice move there by Dankal, going to be pulling back just at the right time. And Wall Swag, once again, going to be keeping at bay Dankal's forces. And Eminence, he's playing on his terms. He was able to level that 4th base. Was it super efficient? Possibly not. But now Dankal with the pretty late Guardian tanks. I mean, the Tier 2 has been remarkably late from Dankal. A nice Cryocopter, I think, would be in order, because with Cryocopters, he can really do some great harassment. This expansion is so close to whatever player is on the north side. I mean, that's just, or that main base sort of ore node is so close to that expansion on the ridge. But the big Tangu harass. This may be the opportune time for Dankal to move out. Yes, he is going to be getting a Harvester and a Refiner rather, but it is going to be likely a similar trade for Dankal, as he is going to be losing a power plant for sure, possibly losing a refinery. No, Eminence does decide to finish it off. A good move there, but the IFVs are going to be moving in, but the Guardian tanks are on the front line. The transform does happen, and pretty much Eminence escapes with very little damage done to him. The Harvester does survive, which means it can be rallied into the army, which we all know is super important. Oh, Eminence. Oh, Eminence. And actually, that is going to be a good move by Eminence. Never mind. It won't even matter, as 2 Vindicators are able to take out... Oh, and actually, a Tangu goes down as well. Not a huge deal, since it was only 1 Tangu. But the Tsunami Tank is a bit of a bigger deal, because those nice little ground army strikes that Dankal can do, thinning out the herd, because if he continues to go for this heavier Guardian tank, rather, playing too much Kane's Wrath, the heavier Guardian tank composition, he's going to want to thin the herd of those Tsunami tanks as much as possible. There's going to be the rebuilding of that main base expansion, and potentially Dankal is going to be doing the exact same thing. Here pops out the Prospector, which will be important if he loses... Don't deploy it just yet, Dankal. If he loses that Refinery, it's going to be very important to have that Prospector there for that build radius. But another Tsunami tank does go down. That's going to be making the front door a little bit easier to push in on. But Eminence is he's doing so well abusing the mobility of his forces. And I don't know, maybe abusing isn't really the right word, but he's using their mobility, their agility, to do some really great moves here as he's striking out against his opponent. And actually, the Tangus are going to be swarming over. This is a really nice number of Tangus for Eminence. He's got, with those point defense drones, enough to contest easily contest the 2 Apollos, which is really a solid number that you want to be at. And as soon as he hits like this cloud, even just 6 with point defense drones is going to be pretty much enough to swarm a base of a field of Apollos. As long as they don't have 2 airfields, another strike is going to be moving out. Dankal is going to be pulling all of his forces, but he takes down another Tsunami tank. And that time, Eminence was not paying as much attention, so he wasn't able to save at least one of them. However, I mean, he was able to save one of them, but it did take a huge amount of damage. He is going to be getting the free repairs there, and once again escaping pretty much scot-free. So Eminence, again, just utilizing the mobility of Tangu VX. And a lot of players hate Tangu VX because it's highly mobile, it's highly powerful, and you can do so much damage with seemingly little effort. But of course, Eminence is going to have to control multiple armies, and as soon as he starts dropping down over here and hitting a harassment timing, then suddenly Dankal is like, oh, your army is in my base? Well, how about my army goes ahead and breaks into your base? As there fires off the Cryoblast in the middle of the map, and the IFVs are going to be getting a little bit swarmed here. However, the Tangus are not all that interested in them. Dankal is actually not going to be taking down the walls. That may be a mistake, because clearing these walls is going to be, you know, a 30-second to a 1-minute job for those Guardian tanks to do. However, this army is likely just going to be pulling back. The Apollos may actually be taking a huge amount of damage there. One does go down. The Guardian tanks are going to be rolling up, and is this army just going to cut and run as soon as the army of Dankal shows up. We've seen this happen pretty much all game long. There is going to be the point defense drones. Where's the transform? As Dankal is actually going to be getting a favorable engagement here if Eminence just sits there and tanks the damage. One chopper does go down. A second one is eliminated as well. A reasonable trade for Dankal. Which one of these players came out ahead? Because Eminence is doing so much economic damage. He's just sniping so many harvesters, and the walls still stand in the middle of the base. And another Tangu. No, actually, the split did happen. So again, if Eminence is paying attention, and actually, Eminence going to be claiming one Vindicator there. A nice move for him. The other one is fully heroic. But yeah, if Eminence isn't paying attention and he doesn't activate the nanomites, whatever they are indeed called. What is that upgrade called? Nano deflectors. If he doesn't activate that, then he'll end up losing more of those tsunami tanks. But if he does activate it and then Dankal does split his Vindicators properly, if he splits his Vindicators, he doesn't do as much damage to an individual tank, and as you saw there, it will survive. That was an extremely convoluted way of saying that, but we do have yet another Prospector going to be going down, which is really unfortunate for Dankal, really great for Eminence. These nice little strikes, this constant pressure, constant damage, and Dankal is just constantly pulling his forces to deal with this. As you can see, how many times has the frontal assault have been halted? How many times has that frontal assault been halted by a counterattack by Eminence's forces? He's forcing Dankal to pull forces, and now we're at a point where both of these players, they haven't been taking huge amounts of direct army damage, and actually, they haven't been taking huge amounts of direct army damage, and so we have these big, huge blobs of units that both of these players have, which are great for A-moving. And we'll have to see, because Dankal may be in a lot of trouble. Oh man, Sage, you're so buggy. The pathing giving these tsunami tanks quite a bit of trouble as they try to go around the side of the map. And there's going to be the nano deflectors firing off, giving the speed boost to the tsunami tanks. It should be running out right about the time that they roll up to this base. The Guardian tanks are here to defend. And right there, they do turn tail, but the Tangus are going to be hitting a really nice flank here as they're going to be attacking where the army is not, and they're going to be getting the kill on that Prospector for sure. So a nice little dual-pronged attack there from Eminence, and once again, Dankal, he's pulling his forces running around the map, but he can't do any damage. He doesn't have enough Apollos to engage directly in the air. He doesn't have enough Vindicators to just sort of take things out on the ground like the tsunami tanks. It's like a perfect storm of units for Eminence, and we saw him do this in his game against Waff the Wolf, as Dankal is actually going to be getting a free kill there. However, Eminence is going to be turning tail and running, rather, and claiming another, possibly 3 tsunami tanks do go down to the Guardian tanks. So nice catches there by Dankal. However, this Tangu cloud is still going to be dominating the skies for Eminence. So Eminence is going to be making sure that there's not too much crazy stuff going on. But I really like the idea of Dankal eventually getting some cryocopters. I don't know if he made like a vow and he was like, I will win with no cryocopters, and so he only wants to use units that aren't cryocopters. But the Emperor's Rage is going to be allowing this Tangu swarm to destroy that armor facility really quite quickly and immediately trash that IFV, and of course with point defense drones, it's going to be getting really dicey here as the main base is mostly getting trashed by Eminence. He's taken out the second airfield. The sell-off does not happen. The Apollos are going to be coming in and doing a fair amount of damage, but it is not enough, and even the final squadron going to be coming in here, potentially taking out one more Tangu. He does get an elite Tangu. However, the Tangus do turn to engage the Apollos. They will be able to escape. Yeah, all 4 of them do escape, but there's 6 aircraft out on the field and only 4 spots on the airfield. Tsunamis are going to be getting a really unfavorable engagement. They're actually firing at the Peacekeeper and random targets there instead, not firing at the Guardian tanks, and this is brilliant for Dankal as he's crushing pretty much the entire army. He may be losing one more Guardian tank. Dankal needs to make sure that he doesn't lose that one unnecessarily, but it looks like he may be escaping. Yeah, Eminence does manage to escape. So much action in this game with the multi-prong attacks from Eminence and this constant harvesting from that lone little harvester. And look at that, Dankal once again trying to break down the front door of Eminence, but he just can't do it. There's too many walls there, and every time he brings in his army to deal with those walls, Eminence is like, well, I've got the more agile, more maneuverable army, so I'm just going to go ahead and attack your main. But the Vindicators, are they going to be getting caught out of position? No, they are not. While in the main base, we do have that one Tsunami tank going to be returning for the harass, going to be going for that harvester. He will get eliminated there. So unfortunately, Eminence was not able to preserve that guy. He did have to take some damage, but rebuilding those airfields, and again, no cryocopters from Dankal. The cryo shrink ray is going to be very good in dealing with the wave force artillery. The regular freeze ray is going to be very good in dealing with harvesters, and in dealing with wave force artillery, it does a fair work as well. But these Apollos may actually be moving out to protect Vindicators. Are we going to be seeing a strike force? Yes, we are. 4 Vindicators going to be moving out. What are they going to be hitting? Potentially the harvesters to go ahead and take them down. But the ore refinery will remain alive, as Eminence does take quite a bit of damage there. And now Eminence is being the one moving his army around. This would be an opportune time for Dankal to actually do some damage to the front gate of Eminence, because he's got the firepower now to start punching in those walls and start doing some real damage. However, the engineer is going to be moving out. Here come the Vindicators once again, potentially moving out to hit this refinery. However, the engineer is quite close, which means they may not get the refinery. Nope. The engineer... Oh, no! Eminence has not actually told the engineer to go inside of that refinery, so he may not be getting the repairs that he needs. He should be spotting it pretty soon here. The 4th refinery is going to be going down. There's the full heal on that 3rd refinery. Well, rather, the main base refinery. But the 4th refinery is now going to be moving out, and Dankal going to be going for the harvester, trying to take those down. However, once again, Emperor's Rage coming into play, going to be allowing these Tangus to take out the ore refinery. Sniping the Prospector is a really nice move, because if they are able to snipe the refinery, then Dankal either has to move his MCV or send a Prospector down there to go ahead and rebuild that build radius so that he can rebuild the refinery. Here comes the final squadron. Is it going to be getting the kill on that refinery? No, it will not. Not quite enough planes there. Only the level 1 of that refinery, of the final squadron. It is not going to be enough, but with 4 Vindicators, that's actually a pretty fair strike squad. I think you need like 8 fully upgraded Vindicators with the advanced aeronautics upgrade to go ahead and take down a refinery. I may be wrong there, as it's not very often that you actually see a refinery get taken down in one bombing run by just Vindicators. Oftentimes, it's mixed with some sort of cryo shot, whether it be the support power or just regular old cryocopters, and that Apollo narrowly escaping there, which of course the Apollos are going to be very crucial in dealing with the Tangus, in dealing also with those Chopper VXs, and again, Dankal is having so much trouble, maybe even dropping down a couple of multi-gunner turrets, just one here to go ahead and provide some defense, one over here, because Tangus do not do very well against multi-gunner turrets. It gives you an extra 20-30 seconds to go ahead and get over there. Actually, you throw some walls down, you finish off the walls over here, you throw down a multi-gunner turret over here. It's just going to be bad news bears, because as long as you don't leave walls here, then they can't just transform on the inside of the walls and cause havoc that way. And actually, 2 Wave Force artillery going down. That's a pretty big deal in the war of the artillery. Wave Force artillery are going to be very, very important. Of course, the Athena cannon is going to be starting to work away on these walls. Might want to focus his attention on one central lane. Instead, oh, the Mirage tank may actually be getting caught out. No, Dankal is actually going to be chasing away all of these Tangus. He might have actually been able to lose, or he might have actually, Eminence might have been able to get the kill on that Mirage tank. So that potentially was a really bad move for Dankal, but this refinery does still stand. Is the barracks still here? Yes, it is, which means Eminence's engineers will not be too far away as soon as that refinery needs them. But again, the front door still remains strong, and Eminence, it is money to replace those walls, but it's not so much money that it's going to bankrupt him. Or, you know, maybe it will bankrupt him. I'm not exactly sure how much cash he does indeed have, but here come the final squadron. It is now level 2, smashing into that Aegis shield. And the perfect shield there. All the damage was done to the final squadron. Those kamikaze pilots doing no damage to the forces of Dankal. So that was actually really nice Aegis shield there. One of the pretty much more popular, one of the better Aegis shields I've seen. But that Mirage tank is caught completely in the open there. Does essentially no damage at all. I don't know if it got a single shot off throughout that entire engagement. But the Athena cannons are potentially targeting from the high ground. However, the Wave Force artillery firing through the walls. Are they even supposed to be able to do that? I wouldn't think that they would be able to do that. I mean, technically there is a path to fire, but that is like, you gotta have some serious mirrors there to deal with that path. Strikers are going to be getting knocked out on the right side of the map. However, on the left side of the map, we do indeed have another refinery getting taken out. And again, Dankal has no build radius on that section of the map. His MCV is a bit too far away. However, he is going to be pulling a prospector to go ahead and reestablish that build radius. Neither one of these players wanting to engage the big army in the middle of the map, but with the solidly established 4th refinery, Eminence with such a strong economic lead over that of his opponent, as he sniped down so many harvesters throughout the course of this game. He sniped down so many refineries as well. That economic damage is just persistent throughout the entire match. The Tangu is going to be transforming, and another prospector bites the dust as they do transform. And actually, the heroic guy, the heroic Tangu, does get eliminated. But again, that honorable discharge ability just going to be doing damage to that refinery. Here's going to be the cryo shot in the middle of the map. However, the King Onis are going to be inside of the Aegis shield, doing huge amounts of damage to the Athena cannons. There's nothing here to back up that cryo shot. Why did he even use it right there? We may never know. Does he? Yes, he does. Oh, that's such a huge move. Getting that tier 3 mecha bay is such a big deal. And I think that might have been just like a split-second reactionary sort of decision by Dankal. He might have been like, oh man, I'm going to lose these forces to the Wave Force artillery if I don't lock it down right now. So that may have been because, I mean, he didn't quite capitalize on that wave, on the cryo shot that went down. He was kind of not doing a whole lot of damage to those units, not really utilizing that frozen state that they were in, but he might have just been like, well, let's lose everything on the field or use cryo shot in not necessarily the most optimal way and not lose quite everything. I think that was probably the rationale behind that. Tank busters. Interesting indeed. I mean, tank busters are good, don't get me wrong. Actually, that might just be a bad rally point. That's why they were back there. I was like, I don't know why they're back there. It's not like they can shoot up. They're traditionally pretty terrible at actually shooting up at things. However, Vindicator's going to be coming in. Oh my gosh. Surveillance sweep. I forgot that was even a top secret protocol, as that is not something you see very often. A testament to how long and how epic this game is. The Mirage tanks on the front line, backed up by Guardian tanks as well. Of course, that laser painter going to be allowing the damage to sort of double. I'm assuming he has high technology, which would be a 100% damage boost. And oh, that MCV is going to be taking some damage. He's going to be getting the free repairs. And the army has been thinned out. That cryo shot helping a little bit in the earlier game, in the earlier stages. But really, the Athena cannons being the ones thinning out the herd earlier in this match. But really, sniping down that mecha bay, that tier 3 mecha bay in particular. So important. The front door has been busted down. Dankal, can he be stopped? That is the question here, as Eminence is turning and running his MCV heading out to the water. He's got power plants spread out throughout the map. He has got Shogun battleships. What? That is absolutely an epic game, as Dankal is going to be pushing in. Eminence, he has pretty much nothing to deal with this army. He's got a Shogun battleship, possibly going to be trying to force the base race scenario, but is that even going to be working? Because Dankal can just run his MCV, and there goes the sell-off of that refinery. The King Oni backed up against the coast. He is shaking in his armor, and there... oh, those poor tank busters. The micro did not happen. Eminence not able to really do anything about that. I mean, he could have sent them into the ground, but that would have just sort of delayed Dankal, which would have been really nice. Delaying Dankal would have been a great move. The Athena cannon does get eliminated right there, but the King Oni gets eliminated as well. And actually, there's enough Vindicators. I think they just one-shot that Shogun battleship. Like, my gosh, that is not something you see very often. Final Squadron going to be coming in. What are they going to be hitting? Potentially that refinery, but really that doesn't seem like the best target necessarily, because the refinery is not going to be ending the game. But the Shogun battleship is, okay, yeah. So that final squadron spent way too much with the camera, spent way too much time showing what was happening for that little of a payoff. Eminence, his entire base is pretty much just out on the water. Dankal, does he have any Apollos to deal with? Yes, he does. He's got 4 Apollos to go ahead and ground these choppers at the very least. At the most, they'll be eliminating all 4 of them, but at the very least, they'll be forcing them onto the ground and actually almost losing a couple of Apollos there. But now, the choppers are going to be a little bit trapped as they are now going to be Striker VXs on the floor. One of them will likely be getting eliminated once they transform. They're going to be taking even more damage from the IFVs. 1 more does go down. 2 have been taken out. 2 more do remain, but Eminence, he's in such a rough economic position. He's got essentially no income, soon to be literally no income, as the oil derrick is probably going to go down. Probably Dankal is going to be eliminating it. He decides to reverse move away. We'll go ahead and finish it off there. However, 1 refinery core is going to be moving out. Vindicators are going to be spotting this, and right here they are going to be able to take that down without too much trouble. Vindies is able to snipe that down quite readily. And yeah, so Eminence, that cryo shot maybe was the biggest deal, but really the Athena cannons, and then suddenly Eminence had no ground army, and Dankal still had his ground army. So much counterattacking that indeed happened throughout this entire match. There's just so much damage, and another Shogun battleship out on the field. Or is it the same one? I'm pretty sure the other one got eliminated by those Vindicators, and Eminence is trying desperately to pull something out of his hat, but I don't think it's going to be enough. There's 4 Vindicators out on the field. Are they going to be enough to finish the game? Oh, 1. All right, so he is going to be going for that Sea-Wing. Almost enough to actually finish off that Shogun battleship. Not quite enough. As... how did those drones actually survive? I'm not entirely sure, because the drones did not get eliminated. Oh, that cryocopter, what is that, like the first one that was built in the game, and I think it's going to be actually eliminated. No, it does survive! That shrink ray actually saving it, because the small Sea-Wing just doesn't have enough DPS to take down that cryocopter. Eminence, he's like, hey, you know what? I got 2 harvesters. I got a Sea-Wing. I had a Shogun battleship. I had a Sea-Wing. He's still got 2 harvesters. He's still got an Imperial Warrior 1. That is going to be the end of this game. Potentially, Eminence's computer crashed once again, but I do not think that was the end of that game. Eminence absolutely playing, dominating style that game with so much harassment. Take a look at that resource graph. What is the actual split between these players? It is going to be a total of only 11,000 credits. Are you kidding me? There's so much harassment from Eminence. Dankal did get the 4th refinery before Eminence, but Eminence was just harassing so much. I thought it was going to be a bigger differential than that, but it was not. However, Eminence playing an incredible style there as we saw those multi-prong attacks. Somehow, Dankal able to deal with that. He was, I guess in the end, he was kind of like, well, you can't attack me through your front door because it's locked to both you and I. That's kind of how walls work. But he's like, hey, you know what? You can't attack me straight on. I can't attack you straight on. So it's not that big of a deal that I'm not necessarily putting on direct pressure. In the end, Eminence, his harassment style, his heavy-handed sort of harassment-focused unit composition and style just did not work out. So many of those tsunami tanks getting eliminated by those Guardian tanks, and then he had to try to rebuild his ground army after that, and he was like, hey, you know what, Wave Force Artillery, pretty good, King Oni's, pretty good, I'll go ahead and get those. Oh, just kidding, I don't have a Tier 3 Mecha Bay. I guess I'll have to stop unit production for the next, like, 6 minutes, as he would have had to rebuild that Mecha Bay and then repurchase those upgrades, which does take quite a while, is quite costly, but that will do it for this game. Thank you very much for watching. A big congratulations to Dankal taking that game, playing as allies. I don't know if it's his strongest suit. There were some things he could have done better to kind of deter that harassment that Eminence was doing, but Eminence playing a very commanding style, Dankal playing even better and really dealing with all of that damage output. But that will do it for this game. I'm going to stop rambling and waxing poetical in the post-game analysis. It's not poetic. Alright, I'm done. Thank you very much for watching. This is Sybert signing out.